Hello, welcome back to our channel. It's Katie and
Mary.
And we read books.
And we have fishes.
Fishes!
This is Benny.
And Baguette.
And Kylie's on the floor over here.
Okay, so today we're going to do a quick wrap up of reading stats for 2023, share some of our favorite and least favorite books, just to get a little bit of our taste.
Yeah, so in 2023, I read 106 books total, and my average rating was a 4.05.
I read 176 books, and my average rating is a 3.8.
For my genre breakdown, I read 49 fantasy, 26 graphic novel mangas, 13 lit fic, 7 mystery thrillers, 2 classics, 2 romances, 2 romance, 2 gothic, 2 sci-fi, and 1 nonfiction.
So don't add up my numbers because I have different amounts on every single list because I'm really bad at keeping track of things. But what I have recorded for genres, I have 13 as literary fiction, 26 thriller/mystery, 27 romance, 10 horror, 33 fantasy, 6 sci-fi, 3 historical fiction, 17 YA fantasy, 3 YA other, 1 nonfiction, 2 memoirs, and 22 graphic novels.
And then for my format, 36 of my books were audiobooks, 26 I read on Kindle, 36 I read physically, and 7 were in immersion.
I have 57 audiobooks, 68 were read physically, and 41 on Kindle.
Alrighty, and that's our brief overview of the stats for last year.
For those math nerds in the world.
Let's start out with the worst first. We each picked 3 books that just didn't do it for us this year. I'm gonna start with the only DNF that I had this year. It's this book, Some Desperate Glory. It's an Illumicrate book, so I did want to read it. It's a beautiful book. I listened to it. I got about 8 hours into it, 51%, and I wasn't really feeling it. It's a sci-fi, and so sci-fi is pretty hit or miss for me, and this one was unfortunately a miss.
I guess I'll do my DNF right now. I don't own it. I got it from the library, so that's good news. I'll put a picture right here. That was Lilith, and this one really hurt because I was really excited for it. I do generally enjoy mythical retellings, although I'm a little tired of them at the moment. But I was really excited to see that there was a book coming out about Lilith because I have kind of a academic interest in Jewish mythology, and Lilith has always been a character that I've been really interested. The thing about this was, though, I could really tell that it was written by someone who doesn't come from a Jewish background. It seemed very biblically focused, and I grew up in like Bible school and I went to Catholic schools and everything, so I already knew all that, and I just wasn't interested in reading a story about a Jewish mythical story that was written by someone not coming from a Jewish background, and I could really tell, and that was just really a bummer because I was really excited for it.
My next book on the worst of my year, I know this is gonna hurt some people, but it is Court of Wings and Ruin, ACOTAR 2. Yes, we do have the old covers. It's Katie's. I am a little bit of a hater. I am not the target audience for romantasy, really. But, you know, I read the first one and I was like, okay, that wasn't good, but Katie wants me to read all of them, so eventually I'll probably read all of them. But anyways, I don't like Farah. I don't like that it's in first person from Farah's point of view. That's just really annoying. I listened to it on audiobook. I had bumped it up to like 2.5 speed just so I could get it over with. And like, literally the only character that I like in this series is Lucian, and he was barely in this one.
He was the best. So actually, instead of doing I only gave 3 books 1 star this year, and I'm actually only going to talk about one of them in this, but the other one I want to talk about is Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. I ended up giving this 2 stars, but this just felt so Republican coded somehow, and Tessa Bailey books are so hit or miss for me. I either love them or hate them. For example, I really loved the first one in this duology, but couldn't stand this one. The male main character, whenever we were in his head, all he could think about was how hot the female main character was and how much he wanted to jump her bones, and that just is really off-putting to me. And so yeah, I just did not get along with that.
My last one is also gonna hurt some people. Probably my absolute worst book that I finished this entire year was Fourth Wing. Again, I am not the target audience. I know that. I did kind of just like jump on the hype because the audiobook was available and Katie had read it.
And I told her to read
Yeah,
it.
Katie told me to read it. She's like, you might like it, I'm not sure. I did not.
I said probably won't.
Probably not. I thought that the world building was terrible. The writing was worse than the ACOTAR books, and I could tell the writing was terrible even though I was listening to it on like 2.5 speed, and that's when you know it's really actually bad. So yeah, unfortunately, this one also did not work for me.
And then the other book that I want to talk about, one I actually did give 1 star, and I also got from the library so I didn't have it, is The Golden Spoon. But one of my pet peeves is I don't like to read about food, especially like really long drawn out descriptions of food. I just think it's really boring and a way to fill the page that I don't know, I can't stand it. And this book, it says that it is a mystery that takes place in kind of like a British Bake Off type show, and I love the Great British Baking Show. I think it's so fun. It's one of my comforts, and I love a good, closed door, locked room mystery, which is what this promised to be. Not only was the mystery absent from this book, no one dies until like 75% in. So the first 75% of the book is just people baking, and I'm sure for some people that's lovely and very cozy, but I do not want to hear about the fact that you're using salted versus unsalted butter because it makes your biscuits flakier. I just don't care. And so this one was really, really disappointing for me.
Out with the old and the bad, and now we're gonna move into some of our favorites for 2023.
We tried to pick 10 and
Didn't
we failed.
go so well.
So here's more than that.
We're gonna start off with 2 graphic novel series that we read this year. The first one is Saga. This is the Compendium 1, so it's volumes 1 through 9. I read all 10 of the ones that were out in like 2 days. I ate it up, and then I recently finished the 11th volume that just came out in the fall. I really enjoy it. It's very adult.
Super adult. No children.
Graphic novel, but if you really like the kind of intergalactic Star Wars-esque, I really suggest you check this one out.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
And then another one that we both really enjoyed was the Sheets series. This one is for kids. It's a middle grade series. It's about a girl whose family owns a laundromat, and she meets a friendly little ghost
named Wendell.
And it's absolutely delightful. It talks a lot about grief and not fitting in, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really lovely.
So, these not 10 books are, some of them are 5 stars, some of them are 4 stars that I just like had a great time with. I'm gonna start off with Percy Jackson and the Chalice of the Gods. I was so excited when I heard that there was going to be another series coming out about Percy, Annabeth, and Grover, the original trio. And yeah, I listened to it on audio. I think I crushed it in one day, going back and forth to work. This one really felt like the original series, and it was such a nice throwback. One part made me emotional. A little bit of spoilers, but Percy is battling old age, and how he defeats him is that he accepts him because he has Annabeth and Grover to grow old with, and that made me emotional.
This also is one of my favorites of the year, but I didn't have it in my little list, but I just want to brag because I do have a signed edition, and it is a prized possession. I'm gonna start with my horror pick. This is probably one of my favorite horrors of the year, and it's Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez, originally written in Spanish. She's from Argentina and then translated this year into English. I absolutely love this. It's about a boy and his dad as they battle this kind of demonic cult that they were entrapped in, that their family is a part of, and also just growing up and learning who you are as a person. I would recommend this if you really liked Mexican Gothic, but you wanted it to be more spooky and also like 200 pages longer. That's what this is.
My next book, it was kind of a surprise, Sleeping Giants. I got this book from Amazon. It was a library book, so I took the dust jacket off. I was surprised by this. I wasn't sure if I would like it. This book was a bit of a surprise for me because, as I said, fantasy is always a hit for me. Sci-fi is hit or miss, but I listened to this on audio, and I do highly recommend you listen to it on audio or tandem read because it is written in like journal entries / interviews. It's like really a production on audio. So okay, sorry for the angle change. The memory card is full. I love Sleeping Giants. I recommend it on audio because it's a full cast production. I had actually given it a 4.5. I had thought I gave it a 5, but I think my final rating for this one is definitely a 4.75 because the second one in the series, I gave it 4.5.
I'm gonna move into next category for me. I have like categories instead of just like books, and that is, oh hi Kylie, oh Life with an 18-year-old. Okay, she made it to the pillow. Everything's good. Okay,
Good.
good job.
Kylie.
Anyway, so my next category, because I more have like categories than just like picked books, is academic girl looking for spooky fairies and boy. Plus boy. So I have A Studying Drowning by Ava Reed, which is it's a YA fantasy about a girl who's an academic at college and gets sent to do this project about her favorite author. And there's a boy who's kind of an academic rival there, and they are doing research on this writer, and they encounter mythical fairies that are bad, and battles, and love ensues. Loved that. And then also Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I absolutely love this, and I've told everyone to read it. I've told everyone to read this book. It is about Emily Wilde, who's an academic who's doing research on fairies to write her encyclopedia, and she goes up to a Nordic country to do research on their fairies. And her academic rival, Wendell Bambleby, who is the love of my life. I love him. New dream boyfriend, new book boyfriend, top tier. He follows her to annoy her and to help her. And it's just very delightful, cozy, but not too cozy, because fairies are evil, but also good sometimes. And I just loved it.
My next pick is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. I listened to it in one evening and sobbed through the entire thing. It really got me in the feels. It's a YA, but it is very heavy about the Syrian war, so it's very heavy. The two characters, though, they're precious, and they just love Studio Ghibli, and I highly recommend.
The next thing I'm going to talk about is two of my favorite romances that really surprised me this year. I have Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I've enjoyed all her other books, but this one I absolutely love. Sleeps all day, must wrestle when we're trying to do something. I love it. It's about these two people who have they strike up a deal where the woman teaches the man about sex because he's not good at it, but they're also working together, and it's really fun. Just like a fun rom. And then also last year I read all of the Bergman Brothers books because I read one and became obsessed with them and read them all within like a week. And this one by far is my favorite. This is actually the fourth one. It's With You Forever. And it's about Axel, which is one of the older brothers. I'm not sure where he is in the line. And Rooney, who is a character from a previous book. And one thing about me is I love a marriage of convenience trope, and that's what this is. And I don't know, I just ate this one up. This one was like really good and really surprising because the Bergman Brothers books are hit or miss for me. Some I really love, some I absolutely despise. But this one, I think this one's the best. And they're getting traditionally published this year with like all new covers and stuff, which is really exciting for Chloe Leese because these were indie published.
My next pick is a debut that I really enjoyed. It is called Bandit Queens by Parini Shroff. It's about domestic abuse.
But it's like darkly comedic.
But it's darkly comedic.
Yeah.
So it is also feel good. And
are women killing their husbands?
yes.
Yeah.
But do
are
they
you
deserve
rooting
it?
for it?
Yeah. It's a very like good for her type of book because the main character kind of starts out being ostracized, and then throughout the book you see her create this great group of women who support each other and help each other kill their abusive husbands. Yeah, and this is a debut. I thought it was great. I am looking forward to anything else she comes out with.
The next category is my other romances for the year, which is Ali Hazelwood's releases this year, both this one and Love Theoretically. I have lent to a friend because I have problems with lending all my books to friends. I loved both of them. Love Theoretically is probably my favorite installment that she's come out with so far. I loved the type 1 diabetes rep. I loved the poor grad student rep. I ate that one up. I was kicking my little feet. Also, I was kicking my little feet during this one. Now listen, this is a YA romance, and I don't always love YA romances, but this one also had me kicking my little feet giggling. I don't like chess. I know nothing about chess. Why did I eat this up? I loved this. Anyway, it's about two chess rivals who fall in love, obviously. So good.
What would a best of 2023 be without an R.F. Kuang? Yellowface is her most recent release. Not much to say other than I loved it. I will read anything she ever comes out with. I can't wait for her next book to come out, Catabasis. This one was very different from her other books. It's like kind of almost thriller-esque. I enjoyed it a lot, but it is very different from her previous works.
I also really enjoyed this. I think we both gave it 5 stars. I do understand some of the criticisms in the writing. It is very short, fast-paced. Some things kind of come out of nowhere and hit you. And I will have to say, though, that we live in the DMV and this takes place in the DMV, and that just adds another level to it.
The exorcism
I'm sorry.
stairs.
Yeah, if you mentioned the exorcism
I drive by them
stairs,
on my way to work every day.
like, I love it. I'm gonna talk about 2 mysteries that I read this year that I absolutely loved, and I want to mention them because I think they're both doing really new and interesting things in the genre, and that's not only the reason I loved them, but I really love that they're doing new things. So Wrong Place, Wrong Time is about a woman who watches her teenage son kill someone one night, and then the next day she wakes up like the day before that happens, and then she continues to wake up like a day in the past, like further in the past, until she kind of solves this mystery to keep her son from committing murder. And I really loved that. I loved what it was doing with time. I loved the actual mystery part of it, and the writing. I just thought it was really fast-paced and fun and a really good time. The other one I want to talk about that kind of is doing something new with the mystery genre is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. The premise of this is that this guy writes how-to books on how to write mysteries. And so there's like little lists of what makes like what you need in every mystery book. You know, like this is like literally like a how to write a mystery, and they tell you in the prologue every page that someone dies on. And so I just thought it was very self-aware and funny, and also a really good walk-through mystery. I thought it was like really lovely. Also, it takes place at a ski resort, so it's really cozy. Loved it. And humorous. It's really funny.
My next pick is the most recent Richard Osman, The Last Devil to Die. It
Crying
is the
tears.
4th one in the Thursday Murder Club. I read all 4 of them this past year, and we went to the signing for this one. So I listened to the first 3 on audio, which is great. The narrator is great. But because they are mystery, I did get a little bit confused, and I felt like, although I gave most of them 5 stars, I felt like this one really hit me because I read it physically with my eyeballs.
And we buddy read it, which was really
buddy
fun.
read it, and it has my tabs. And I can't wait for the next installment, but I do think that our characters need a break.
They're tired.
They're tired.
Old. To back that up, my favorite mystery of the year actually was The Man Who Died Twice, which is the second in the Thursday Murder Club book by Richard Osman. I love all of the books in this series, but I do think that by far this one is the best in terms of the actual mystery. And I also love where it sets up the characters for the next couple books. We get introduced to great characters like Alan. Alan is my number 1 boy. I love him. So I thought that this was my favorite mystery of the year, and I read quite a few. So high praise.
So my next pick is actually 2 books, Legendborn and Bloodmarked. Bloodmarked we actually also have signed because Katie went to a signing.
It's my favorite activity.
I actually read these while I was in Italy this past year.
After I begged her for like
after
2
she begged
years.
and begged.
2 years, I think.
And
at least.
these are YA fantasy, and YA fantasy for me is also pretty hit or miss, but these were definitely 10 out of 10 a hit. I read both of them in like 4 days, and they are
They're chunky boys. Yeah.
Highly recommend. I am so excited that it is going to be 4 books, but I am devastated that we have to wait a whole nother year for Oathbound.
Listen, Tracy is taking her time. She's creating perfection. I'm going to talk about my favorite sci-fi of the year, which was Sea of Tranquility. And I'm not a huge sci-fi girly. When it comes to sci-fi, when there's big space battles, I kind of check out. And if there's a lot of space battles, I'm checked out. I like watching them on movies. Like Star Wars is one of my favorite, series, but just something about reading about this ship shot this and this ship did this, I don't care. That being said, Sea of Tranquility is not like that. It is a wonderful, beautiful, I would say it's more on the literary fiction side of sci-fi than like true sci-fi, but it takes place in 3 or 4 different time periods, and people are living on the moon, and all of these periods intersect in a way. And also, this is just like some of the most beautiful writing, and there is this line in here that someone got tattooed on them, and I'm like, maybe I should get that tattooed on me. This was just absolutely beautiful. Love it. Oh, and it's by Emily St. John Mandel, if I didn't say.
My next 2 books are kind of novella-esque. The first one that I want to talk about is Before Your Memory Fades. It is the 3rd book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I just read the 4th one. It came out in November. I really like this series. It's just so cozy, also very gut-wrenching, and this one is my favorite of the 4 that are out. I really liked that this one takes place in Hokkaido, so it's a different cafe. Some recurring characters come back, but there's also a great new cast of characters as well. And then my next book is Come Tumbling Down by Shauna Maguire. This one is the fifth one. And
I think so too.
the Wayward Children series, all of which I have also read this year. But I think this one is my favorite. It's about Jack and Jill, and I really like their world. It's brutal and gothic and
Spooky.
violent and spooky and just good vibes.
That's a great segue because I have Every Heart a Doorway, which is the first in the Wayward Children, and this is kind of a placeholder for the entire series. I do love this one. This one is actually one of my favorites because I love the stories at the school more than when we're like in someone's world, just because I love to see all the children interact with each other and how they're dealing with coming back from their worlds and how they've changed them.
I would say we recommend to read them with your eyeballs because there are pictures in the books.
Yeah, I've read all of them physically, and I'll like limit myself to like one section a day because I just want them to last as long as possible. But yeah, I think this one I really love. It introduces us to the school, to some characters. Nancy is the main character in this one, and she's one of my favorite characters from the series. But since this one I have gone on to read most of them, I'm trying to kind of pace myself through the series. I think I have the last few to read, but I just really love each installment as much as the next, and I think they're very magical and they deal with hard topics, but in a way that makes them very easy to process and deal with, and kind of like a safe space, and also just the joys of children's imagination. Anyway, so I highly
And their
recommend.
resilience as well.
But yeah, so I highly recommend, but I'm sure you guys already know that it's beloved for a reason.
So the penultimate book that I want to talk about, I read this book in January of 2023, so it was one of the first books I read, 5 stars, and it is Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. This one is the last installment of the Greenbone Saga, and it is an epic fantasy that in an island nation called Kikon, and I just thought this was the perfect ending to a great trilogy. It is heavy, it is dense, it is chunky, but if you have the time to dedicate, I highly recommend the whole series. And yeah,
I need to get to that one. I've read the
Yeah.
first two, but that one is just like, it's so big. I don't know, I'm like putting
they're
it
a
off.
little overwhelming, I
Yeah.
will say.
Yeah.
But once you get into them,
And then the last book I want to talk about, and again, this is kind of a placeholder for the whole series. This is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Frederick Bachman is probably this household's favorite author. We both absolutely love him, everything he writes. Yeah, she's wearing a Beartown hockey sweatshirt that I got her for Christmas last year. That was probably the best gift I've gotten you, or one of them. Pretty good at gifts, guys. Anyway, if you don't know what this is about, it's about a small town in Sweden called Beartown and their hockey team. And in the first book, we're dealing of the rape of a teenage girl and the consequences that that action has on the rest of the town. And it is a trilogy. I read all 3 books this year and just sobbed my way through the entire books. All of them. And Frederick Bachman has this way of making really small moments really important, and just has a way of making each person feel so important, even if they're just a minor character in the books. And I highly recommend all of his books, but this one I think really is probably his magnum opus, is the Beartown trilogy, and he has announced that he's working on more books, and that's very exciting to me.
and me as well, because I read everything he ever wrote in 2022. So my last book is actually a series. One of my goals for 2023 was to read The Dandelion Dynasty. It's a 4-book series written by Ken Liu and labeled, as he calls it, Silk Punk. So I have the last one here, The Speaking Bones. I think this is probably the best series I've ever read. They're large. This is like a 40-hour audiobook, and it did take me 3 months to read the first one. But the first one is very much a world building novel, and it is, 700 pages of world building. Interesting, but it does take time to get through it. But I finished all 4 of these this year. The world building is fantastic. The cast of characters is fantastic. And just the way that he describes day-to-day life, but also the sharing of cultures, war, it's just really incredible. And I think it's the best series that I read last year, and maybe even of all time.
High
praise.
High praise there.
High
High bar.
Yeah.
The bar that it set. So that is all of the books we wanted to talk about today. Hopefully we'll film another video before next year. But
Our goal is 1 per month.
we'll see.
Hopefully you'll catch us soon.
Let us know if you enjoyed any of these books or hated them. Whatever your opinions are, we'd love to know. And let us know what your favorite book of the year was. Or your least favorite. I love to know what people hate.
We love haters.
We are haters.
We are.
But yeah, that's it. Bye.
Bye.